All right, guys, we do have another stadium update and some new news coming to hand in the past couple of days about GMHBA Stadium in Geelong, better known as Kardinia Park. And it's coming out the Geelong Football Club is wanting more money from the Australian and Victorian taxpayers for a new $60 million development at the stadium. Now, this development, it won't be a new stand or anything like that. It will be a training and events facility. Now, the facility would include a 60 by 40 metre indoor field, would be surrounded by facilities which would have, quote, community use and commercial elements. This article from Oz Stadiums, and it is quoting the Geelong Football Club CEO, Steve Hocking. The development would also be utilised as an event space, and on top of that, there would be a decent merchandise shop, and it would upgrade the cafe in the facility. Now, the Cats obviously wanting this new facility. They do want the indoor playing field. And you will have seen that with a lot of these training facilities that have been built in recent years, where they do have an indoor field which lets the players train in dry conditions. Even if there is wind and rain, etc. outside, it does let them train in dry conditions. So the Cats obviously seeing that with some of these other clubs, Essendon, Western Bulldogs recently, and a few others, where they are incorporating that indoor element into it. But the big stuff here is the Cats are wanting around $40 million from the taxpayer. They are saying they're going to raise around $20 million of their own, but they do want $40 million from the taxpayer. And this stadium, if you've been following it for the past 15 or 20 years, it has had a hell of a lot of work put into the renovations. The entire ground is basically built in the last 20 years. Most recently, the Selwood stand behind one of the goals did open at the start of 2024. That stand seating around 14,000 people. You do have the terrace element with the standing room there, which is like what they had on the old Gary Ablett terrace there. That cost around $142 million. And all up over the past 2 decades, the stadium has received around $340 million from the state and federal governments. And those stands been built in a number of stages over the past 15, 20 years. You do have the light towers. You do also have the training facilities incorporated into it. And you've got to ask the question, is it really fair for the Cats to be asking for this money when so much has been put into the stadium over the past 15 or 20 years? People might say, well, if you want it, you pay for it yourself. The issue there is the stadium is publicly owned, even though the Geelong Football Club do train there and their administrative base is at the stadium. It is owned by the Victorian government. And that is the case with almost all stadiums in Australia. That's why they're all generally publicly funded, because they are publicly owned. So total cost around $60 million for this project, meaning the shortfall would be around $40 million if the Cats can raise the $20 million. And that is why they are mentioning the community components to the development, because if you do say it is just a football training base, then it is a harder sell for those governments to justify the spending. And you'll always see with these projects, they do offer it up to the community. Even if it is just paying lip service to it, they do have to tick the box in terms of saying you can come in when there's not games on, you can utilise the swimming pool, you can utilise the function centre, whatever it is, they will always include that in it. And the reason this stadium has got so much government funding injected into it for these developments is because Geelong is situated in what is basically a swing electorate. And that means you are going to have both political parties trying to buy votes by investing into the stadium, because you know a lot of the voters probably do support the Geelong Football Club. They do go to games. So that is the government saying, look, we're going to pay for the upgrades and the renovations to the stadium. And they are basically trying to buy the vote of the Geelong public. And it has led some people to nickname this stadium Pork Barrel Park because of all that government funding that has gone into it, trying to buy votes in an important swing seat. And you do get where they're coming from, because if you do live in a safe Liberal or safe Labor seat, you don't really see the investment into your community, because there's not really any way that that particular political party can swing it in any meaningful way to get another seat in Parliament. So often you see those areas are neglected in terms of public spending, but certainly the people of Geelong benefiting significantly from this. I think this actually might be a hard ask to justify for the taxpayer because there has been so much money put into it. And if we just wind the clock back, the latest stage was the Selwood stand. Prior to that, you did have, I believe, the Brownlow and Premiership stands on the wing. You did also have the 2-deck players stand behind the other goals. You had the light towers go in around 2013, and the oldest part of the ground was only built in around 2004, 2005. That is the Hickey stand. On the outer wing, as you look at it from the broadcast position, it does look a lot smaller than the rest of the ground, but the reason for that is it is backed right onto a road, so you really can't go as big with that stand or as deep with the seating as you do with the other stands. But either way, that stand definitely not in need of any renovations for at least 15, 20 years. And the only thing they can do in terms of spending with the stadium is investing in the infrastructure, upgrading the training facilities, and also offering up the parts of the ground that are accessible to the community, to the business community, and the recreational community in terms of utilising those areas. So we'll have to wait and see whether the taxpayers are willing to sort of fund this project. I do think there might be some reluctance and a bit of pushback from the community around this. Football clubs and the AFL as a whole are very good at lobbying to get investment into these projects, so we will wait and see. But I think so recently after that last stage of the renovation, it may be a bit too much to be asking for at this point in time. In terms of the stadium, it would certainly tick another box. It is a very nice stadium. I do think it is probably a top 5 or 6 stadium in the AFL at this point. Very modern, do have plenty of coverage from the overhangs over the stands. And despite the unique shape of the ground, I do think it is very good, even if opposition fans do often like to criticise the ground. We know obviously Collingwood and a few other clubs in Melbourne rarely going there to play. But that is all we're going to have time for today, guys. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe for more.